This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 964 of Horse Tip Daily. A different horse tip, a different equine topic, a different equestrian expert every day. Horse Tip Daily brings the world of equine knowledge to you, one day at a time. Greetings, horse people. Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily. Today is another tip inspired by a listener question. This is part 2 of our fly spray series. One of our astute Horse Tip Daily fans had some questions about fly spray, so I reached out to the good folks at WF Young, you may know them as Absorbing, and Jeannie McKenzie agreed to come on the show and clear up some cloudy areas regarding bug repellents for horses. This time we're talking about shelf life, and we'll get right to our tip after this important message from EZSignsOnline.com.
EZSigns Online is the official sign company of the Horse Radio Network. This week's product highlight are their personalized nameplates. Perfect for horse stalls, tack rooms, lockers, bedroom doors, dog kennels, or whatever you can think of. Choose from hundreds of online graphics to further customize the nameplates from EZSignsOnline.com. Made from 1/2-inch thick solid PVC signboard, these colorful and unique one-sided nameplates are 3.5 inches by 16 inches and are designed for durability, long-term indoor or outdoor use. They are only $39.95 each, and remember, free shipping on most orders over $100. Visit them at EZSignsOnline.com.
Welcome to the show, Jeannie.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's almost like an annual rite of passage for horse folks that we start dusting off the fly spray bottles that were left over from last year and thinking about what we need to get this year and whether or not we want to stock up. And invariably, in the back of the tack box, in the bottom of the brush container, underneath of the porch where the dog grabbed it, you find an old bottle of fly spray whose expiration date is no longer visible. Is there a shelf life on fly spray? Dare we use the stuff that's been sitting there for 10 years?
Well, hopefully your product still has an expiration date on it. It should, but certainly, as we know, as you kind of rotating what you have this season, what you need, and what you have left over from previous seasons, certainly that's the decision needs to be made about what's still good and what's not. You know, part of that has to do with how your fly spray has been stored in terms of if it's been in a temperature-controlled environment, meaning not too extreme heat or too extreme cold. And if it's water-based, then certainly those when it's freezing cold, that can have an effect on a fly spray in a general sense. All of our fly sprays have over 5 years shelf stability, meaning that it has a pretty long shelf life. It's probably effective beyond that. But what we do is we determine the how long it should last based on how effective the active ingredients remain in the product. So, you know, our goal is to have the consumer have a positive experience with using the fly sprays, and for the most part, if it's been stored in proper conditions, then you'll probably continue to see that the product works. I can't say that necessarily for all fly sprays because certainly there are some sprays that contain ingredients that maybe don't have as long of a shelf life, and so you'd probably want to educate yourself as to what is in the product and whether or not there is indicated on the actual label itself. There should be, as an EPA product, when it was made and how long that particular product should last. And it's really to give the most safe and positive experience with the product.
So there can be a difference in anticipated shelf life, and shelf life meaning that it's being stored at climate-controlled temperatures, not up north in a cabinet in the barn or in Miami in a cabinet in the barn. The expected shelf life of an oil-based product is likely to be shorter than the expected shelf life of a water-based product. Could I say something that general?
Well, it really does depend on the particular manufacturer and what they're using for active ingredients. There are some oil-based fly sprays on the market that have a very high percentage of ingredients, and so, really, in order to, it may be okay, but the experience may not be as good as what was listed originally on the label when the product was made, several years ago. So I guess in a general sense, good manufacturers, they would make sure that there is testing and have done the shelf life so that, and that's what appears on the actual label itself, is to let the consumer know so that they can make that decision as to whether or not they want to use up what they have left, and if it's still good. And if not, if it's beyond that date, then certainly one of the risks is that it's just not going to be as effective as it used to be. And as we talked, early in your show, the rotation, as you introduce insecticides and or repellents that are less and less effective, that can have an impact on the fly population that's in your environment. So you kind of want to make sure that if you're going to use insecticide-based products, that they're good and they're strong, and they're EPA compliant with the labeling and the dating.
Got it. So, and there should be a date to be found. That's good to know. So I can look. I'll take my magnifying glass to the barn with me and try to find that. So if I want to maximize the shelf life of my fly spray, let's say we have a big barn. There are 30 horses there and 19 different owners, and of course everybody's got their own concoction fly spray brand. We should all take them home and put them in the closet in the laundry room over the winter so that they don't freeze, because that's going to maximize our available shelf life. Am I right there?
It can have an impact, certainly. It does depend on the amount of water that's in the particular product that you're using. So, what we have found, since it's more common than not that people actually do leave all of their chemical-based things, in the tack room, is that you want to, again, recheck those dates, but also, certainly shaking the bottle and or, putting it back. Sometimes things can separate. So whether or not that's because the product has been there a long time or it hasn't, certainly, I think that is one way to, test the integrity of the product. Another is, if you're not sure, don't take the chance. Some people will do things like a spot test, and or just, I guess make sure before they apply it, either to the animal or to, you might want to try it as a premise and or try it in some smaller sort of application if you're not sure whether or not the product is still good.
And if you're a wuss like me, you just don't use it.
And that's the better thing to do if you're at all concerned. Certainly, the love that you have for your horse precedes anything. So if you're at all concerned, then don't take the chance. It's not really worth it. But certainly, buying quality products that utilize high grade ingredients will give you a better assurance that you're going to have a good experience with the product.
Now, how about the opposite end of the spectrum, heat and humidity? For example, folks who live in the far south in tropical areas, is that as likely to degrade the effectiveness of the product? Is it more likely or less likely than freezing to degrade the effectiveness?
I think that, it's not so much an extreme temperature as it is exposure to sunlight.
Really?
So, yes.
Would not have guessed that.
Yeah, the pyrethrin in particular, it's a natural-based insecticide. One of its shortcomings is that it can easily break down in sunlight. And so good products like our UltraShield EX, they'll have other ingredients to help extend the shelf life, if you will, or the effectiveness of the pyrethrin. So acknowledging that, sort of up front, that it's great that it's natural, but left by itself or only a pie-based product, it's an effective insecticide, but if it's exposed to sunlight, it'll has a higher probability of breaking down quicker over time.
Interesting. And all this, see, now I'm really concerned because my fly sprayer in the barn, frequently the fly sprayer that comes on the top of the fly spray, it doesn't last. It gets broken, you hang it on the fence wrong, you knock it down, it breaks. And you pour it into a new fly sprayer and it says fly spray on the side, but it's a clear bottle, so maybe I shouldn't be using a clear bottle.
Well, again, it depends on what's in that fly spray. We know that's a very common occurrence to transfer product, whether it's because a sprayer got knocked around a bit, and or sometimes people purchase their fly spray in a gallon refill, and so they're transferring it into another container. Again, if it's not left out in sort of the direct sunlight, that's a better way to handle and or store that product, just to kind of protect it over time.
Interesting. Now, see, I never even thought about that because I was aware of the pyrethrins being sensitive to exposure to light, and that's why they don't last as long, because Mother Nature breaks them down. That's what she's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they don't bother your horse. But on the other hand, it never occurred to me that putting them in a clear bottle and letting it sit in the sunshiny aisleway probably wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, there's better ways to, I guess, to protect the integrity of it. Anything extreme is not good.
Well, now I know I'm going to get a dark colored fly spray bottle, because I can't reuse the empty Ultra Shield if I'm putting something else in it, because that's not a good idea either.
That is correct. We prefer that you don't do that, and again, I think that in a general sense, the overall sort of attention to what's going on within the barn in terms of the traditional, barn management practices will also help in terms of, keeping the overall fly population down. Certainly, obviously, with manure management and what's happening in the pasture in terms of, weeds and standing water. All of those factors kind of come into play to kind of keep the overall fly population down, and then certainly using quality fly spray that have ingredients that have been tried and true and tested, and have proper labeling that reflect how good it is and how long it works. That all becomes kind of part of the decision about what's the right product for you.
There we go. So take your magnifying glass to the store with you, folks. Read the labels. Having listened to Horse Tip Daily and what Janie McKinley has to say, you will be ready and properly armed to take on the fly spray war this year. And thank you so much, Janie, for stopping by. Well, there you go. Thank you again to Jeannie McKenzie from WF Young for helping us out here on Horse Tip Daily. You can find all sorts of information about their products at wfyoung.com or absorbing.com. You can find lots more tips ranging from barn care to websites for horse people at horsetipdaily.com. Just look for the topics drop-down menu on the left. And now you can have every single one of your favorite Horse Radio Network shows with you wherever you go with the free Horse Radio Network app for both iPhone and Android. Just go to your app store and search Horse Radio Network. You can download it today. It's quick and it's free and it's easy. This podcast has been made possible through the generous support of EZSignsOnline.com and listeners like you. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements of guests or their opinions. Use your own judgment when listening to the tips provided by the experts on Horse Tip Daily.